Speaking Human.
Today on Speaking Human, we auction off our thoughts on eBay's new brand campaign taking aim at Amazon and share our bids for some of the best brand comebacks in recent memory. Cue up LL Cool J because this podcast is about to stage the greatest comeback since our last episode.
Speaking Human.
Welcome to Speaking Human, where we simplify the world of marketing for humans. I'm Shad Conley, and with me is my co-host, Patrick, sells his underwear on eBay, Jebber.
Look, Shad, I told you that in confidence. Why would you tell our listeners something so personal?
No shame, man. It's public sale. It's open to anybody. I thought it would help you promote your items, which you're trying to move. Make some money, you know?
At least you didn't say dirty underwear. Officially, it's clean underwear.
Officially.
Clean it up, Shad.
eBay, it's a crazy world. You can buy anything. Which leads us into our opening question today, Patrick. Do you think eBay is a brand that needs a comeback?
I think they've become a little stale. And that doesn't mean that they're not successful. 169 million active buyers is nothing to sneeze at for sure, but the platform has seen some erratic growth over the years. So yes, I would say a comeback is sort of how I would position that.
I feel the same way as you. It's tough to say that a brand that, makes billions in profit each year needs a comeback, right? It implies like they're down and out, which they're not out. But I think it's undeniable that they use the word stale, which is also the word that I fell on. Don't you kind of think of eBay now as like kind of a grandfather of the internet?
Yeah, it does. It feels very outdated.
Yeah, it's kind of like the old internet to me. Even looking at their site, which they've updated, but mostly remains the same. It feels a little bit like a relic, a dinosaur, part of the old web.
Well, if you look hard enough, you can find Indiana Jones surfing eBay.
Well, the next Indiana Jones movie is going to be like Indiana Jones is trying to find eBay.
I would go see that
It takes
movie.
place in the future, and he's like, I need to find it and bring it back.
It's a fossil.
Which it kind of, I think we're on the same page there, though. I think it's a brand successful and still doing very well, could use a jolt of new life to it, and especially as a brand, get reinvigorated a little bit. I mean, do you use eBay? Did you used to use eBay? Have you used it in the past? Do you use it now?
I did go through a period of time when I bought some stuff on eBay that I couldn't get anywhere else. For instance, I built my kids a Lego table, and I needed a ton of the same color bricks. And at the time, eBay was the only place I could find them, but they were all used. And some of them were actually dirty.
Oh?
Dirty Legos. But yeah, I don't really use the site anymore, really. I think I logged in for the first time in 4 or 5 years when I was doing the research for the podcast.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm kind of the same camp. I probably used it a little more heavily when I actually used it at the most. But if I look at the past 10 years since I've been an eBay user, my usage trajectory probably goes on a pretty consistent downward curve. I think I used to buy and sell a lot of DVDs, CDs, books, those type of things on there. For a variety of different reasons, that's not what I use anymore. One's, convenience. All those things I get digitally now, so I don't really need to buy or sell them like I used to. And, even with selling stuff on there, now, rather than trying to make a little money, the stage of life I'm at, I just donate things when I don't need them anymore. But I think we're pretty similar to a lot of people where that used to be the site to go to do these specific things, buying and selling certain things and getting good deals. And now there's just a lot of other options that are a little more convenient.
The days of selling and buying things on eBay, have become replaced by the Amazons of the world,
Yeah, I mean, that is a huge factor. Obviously, something we're going to get into more, Amazon and eBay and the relationship. But for me personally, Amazon's pretty much replaced eBay as my go-to e-commerce site. If I'm trying to get something or price compare or see if I can get a better deal, the place I'm going to is Amazon, not necessarily eBay, as it once was. We had a whole episode about Amazon, but obviously free 2-day shipping, huge factor, and the fact, eBay, you're buying from all these different sellers. Amazon, you're also doing that, but it's more funneled through them. Their customer service, you're covered no matter what.
You're relying a lot on the trustworthiness of the other sellers in eBay's case, you know what I mean? Whereas Amazon, you're trusting their brand.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. So do you think, are these just our perceptions, or is this generally, how do you think eBay is perceived now as a brand?
I don't know if the perception that I've had of them has changed. I thought it was interesting that 80% of all merchandise sold on eBay was new merchandise. That surprised me.
Yeah, me too.
Since that's not how I personally think of eBay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, whether I realize it or not, which I didn't, the site has evolved in that way where it's more new items and they say 87 of them sold or buy it now. So it's more just like instantaneous buying of new items as opposed to auctioning off used items, which is what it used to be primarily.
Yeah, my perception of eBay was always it's an online garage sale.
Yeah, I agree.
Where people,
Yeah.
where they go to sell their old crap,
Absolutely, absolutely. I thought this, I mean, I still think even up until seeing these stats from eBay that tell you those things, there's a different eBay out there than I even knew existed.
That's why when I saw the stats too, I was like, really? It caught me off guard because I didn't expect it.
Yeah, and I think eBay has not effectively communicated that or marketed that, to people. But, as a brand, it's still a brand that everybody knows. I think you say eBay to almost anybody, they know what it was. They would recognize it. So it has that, that recognition that's still pretty strong in place. But, we're obviously not super young anymore. We're not the, coveted 25-year-olds. I wonder what that demographic thinks of eBay. I feel like eBay is starting to trend old, I can think my dad uses it, but I don't know that my younger brother uses it. I don't know if that's true across the board, but that may say something about what's going on with eBay at this point in time.
eBay is kind of like how social media is today, I mean, we're maybe still on Facebook or our parents are maybe on Facebook, but, the younger demographic has moved on at this point. You know what I mean? They're like, yeah, Facebook, that's so yesterday. It happens very quickly. If they've never done any great marketing to the younger crowd, then why would they go to that site? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's always interesting for us as people who have been here participating in almost the full history of the internet, seeing how it's shifted, and how we are like 3 decades in of mainstream internet use, how it's changed and how some of these, it's got to be like the first 30 years of TV, right? How it's just shifted and how people use it change and how the once mighty cornerstones of it eventually just crumble down a little bit and new things rise up in their place.
Yeah, it's like the physical world in a lot of ways.
Whoa.
Did I just blow your mind?
Matrix me.
So do you think they've done a good job of evolving? I'm going to say no, probably, but...
I mean, I'd say based on what we're seeing, like those stats you talked about and how it's more new items and buy it now items, and I think it's just more like let's get sellers who are selling a lot of things rather than this garage sale version. I mean, looking at that, I would say they have evolved in a way. I don't know if they've done a good job communicating that evolution. They need to answer the question, with so many different options for buying and selling things on the net, what's the benefit of using eBay? Like, why should you use it? When should you use it? Who is it for now?
I think they're taking steps in the right direction to make it feel alive and new without necessarily destroying the equity that they already have in the eBay brand.
Yeah, maybe they're at the point where they're trying to evolve, And this is a key pivot point in that history.
Word.
With that being said, let's go a little deeper. In a minute, we'll head into our title bout where eBay, the plucky underdog, is taking on Amazon, the reigning e-commerce champion. But first, let's get a quick word from our sponsor.
Today's sponsor is Farmers Insurance. Insurance can be confusing, overwhelming, and time-consuming. At Hire Insurance Agency, we remove the guesswork and hassle, helping you protect what matters most. We offer a wide range of auto, home, business, and life insurance policies to help you meet your specific needs. Call 844-543-3463 or visit hireinsurance.com. That's HYRE insurance.com for more information.
Boom!
Can I open it?
This is worth every penny! Now we started a fire. I have to admit I'm enjoying
So my color?
Are we falling in love? All we ever need is a mind touch.
That was an audio clip from eBay's recent Fill Your Cart with Color commercial, which has aired several times during the NBA Finals. That commercial and its accompanying brand campaign appear to be eBay's bid to re-emerge from the shadows of Amazon and to reinvigorate their user base.
All right, so Patrick, let's briefly describe this campaign for the listeners out there who may not have seen it or may not have seen the Fill Your Cart with Color commercial. So basically, this is a new campaign from eBay to redefine the eBay brand, which they note as celebrating individuality and self-expression, and positioning them against Amazon and telling people how they need to break away from the beige conformity of traditional commerce. Obviously, a allusion to Amazon and their beige packaging. So they're encouraging people to live colorfully and positioning eBay as the more personalized, the more unique, the more interesting e-commerce site, where you get this shopping experience that's more unique to you as an individual, as opposed to something like Amazon, which they're, positioning as the mainstream, what everybody's using, where everybody's getting all the same stuff, But that's the idea of the campaign. eBay as the colorful option in e-commerce versus Amazon, the beige option.
Yeah, which is true because they do have a lot of colors in their logo.
That's true. There's a lot of color in their logo versus Amazon, which doesn't have a lot of color in its logo.
Yeah, eBay is the Google of the e-commerce world.
Very, very similar to Google. So what do you think, Patrick? What do you like about this campaign? What does it do well, if it does anything well?
I think it shows people using products in a fun and interesting way. Like the commercial that I'm thinking of, they show all these people using products that they've purchased on eBay. For me, I always think one of the things that you're trying to do as a marketer, you want to show the benefit, not the feature of the product itself. For instance, there's a dad with a leaf blower and he's like, this is worth every penny. And he's blowing leaves all over the kids and it looks like chaos, but having fun with his family. And to me, that was showing this very human side of people.
Also a nice little nod to Chewbacca Mom there with the, this is worth every penny. Remember Chewbacca Mom?
So long ago. Come on, Chad, I don't
It
remember.
was 100 years ago.
Social media, in social media
Yeah.
years, that was 100 years ago. And it seemed like they captured people's emotions really well. Like there's a guy who opens up a drone package and he's really excited. And these images that they show aren't completely unique, but it's definitely new to eBay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it gives eBay some much needed personality, and I think what they didn't have before. I also, mostly the same things stuck out to me. The TV spot has like energy, color, and that youth focus that I think they're going for. Skews younger even in the people they're showing and focuses on, like you said, the experience they're having with the things they buy as opposed to just what they're buying. Like you were talking about the dad with the leaf blower and there's a girl who's going fly fishing. It shows these unique experiences and how eBay is helping these people get there, which underlines the basic message they're going for here. And I think it works, and it does, especially the commercial. It has a lot of energy to it. It's got some pop.
That's a great pull out. The thing that's so difficult and the thing we're always trying to do in marketing, which is hard, is to show the experience and to show the emotion that people feel about a product as opposed to showing just the product, And I think that this does that very, very well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Peeling back, the layer going the next level down, what do you think of the concept and message of this campaign, this fill your cart with color and this idea of individuality and self-expression? Do you think it's an effective way for eBay to brand itself?
I think it's an interesting metaphor. Let me just say this. I like the visuals and I half like the tagline. I think what I like most about it is that it shows eBay evolving and trying to remain relevant, thinking of ways to pull new users into the eBay ecosystem. But I'm not sure that it's like the greatest marketing campaign ever. It's interesting.
Yeah, the tagline itself, not one of the best of all time, but it works. It falls a little on the abstract side when you're talking about eBay as this individuality and self-expression tool. I think it's a pretty good concept and approach. The thing that stuck out to me and the thing I wonder is how much this is going to resonate without a distinctive game-changing feature to the site to sell with it. You're still selling the same old eBay, right? You're not saying that anything's different with this campaign or this commercial. It's just more how you're framing it. It's a good message. I just wonder how much that's going to register as opposed to if they were like, all right, we're launching the new and improved eBay, or, we've added this new feature that's going to change the way you use eBay. If that was going along with it, I could picture it having a bigger impact. But this just alone it's improved branding. I don't know if it's going to make a huge, give them a huge jump in their user base or anything.
And I agree with that. I mean, they do say that they're using that new artificial intelligence and machine learning, which helps them personalize and customize your experience with eBay. But that's not really totally what they're talking about there, you know?
People aren't going to go to the site and be like, oh, this new machine learning is really giving me some great recommendations.
Yeah. I think, really what this is intended to do anyway is to get people to be like, wow, eBay, I forgot about them. Or what's this eBay that these old people speak of?
And I don't know if it totally does that for me. I don't know. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
If there was something else that would make me be like, wow, I got to really check out eBay again, as opposed to, oh, eBay's got better branding now.
And that's part of it is that, like I said, we thought of eBay as an online garage sale, and this takes the brand and sort of turns it around a little bit so that you see this Amazon quality feel to it, like, oh, I can buy new stuff on eBay? I didn't know that. Maybe it's accomplishing its task in that regard,
Yeah. So what do you think of eBay and Amazon as competitors? Have you thought that in the past?
No, I didn't. I mean, regardless if it's a smart move or not, eBay had to make a move like this if they want growth.
Yeah.
Because they needed to let people know that there's another solution for them, to buy things. And they can choose eBay instead of Amazon.
Yeah. I mean, they are competitors. When I think about it, a lot of the stuff I used to do on eBay, I do on Amazon. I don't really think of them as the same thing for some reason. But, once I think about it, yeah, they are competitors. And yeah, Amazon's taking a bite out of eBay's business. I think the Amazon angle here is the best part of this campaign. The positioning eBay against Amazon is what I like the most about it. I think that's the most effective thing about it, actually. Taking Amazon and kind of framing them as this boring, corporate, stagnant big brother and being like, eBay's the cool, fun, interesting, colorful place to go is pretty smart. It's a pretty smart move, even if, people are using them in different ways. It's a good reminder that eBay also is Amazon-esque in a lot of the things you can do. So that, to me, is probably the best part of this campaign. I like how they did it. I like that they did it subtly, not super in your face, but they put it there, and they reframed how people think of eBay by playing off of how people think of Amazon.
I think eBay coming out and saying they're a competitor of Amazon, even if they've been a competitor all along, you start down this path and it could get a little hairy. You know what I mean?
It could. At this point, I don't know that Amazon, takes eBay as serious enough of a threat because, like I said, they're not doing anything super different to take people away at this point, If
eBay starts a subscription service like eBay Prime, then I think Amazon's going to head downriver and start a turf war, but...
Yeah, that's interesting.
So do you think the campaign will work to reinvigorate eBay and positioning the site against Amazon?
I don't know. I don't know that they're going to take much of a bite out of Amazon without offering something truly unique. I think as a rebranding effort, it's solid. It gives eBay, some much needed new life and kind of shaves some years off that dinosaur perception a little bit, which I think is good. I think it will improve brand perceptions amongst the younger demographic too. I just don't know that it's going to, make a seismic impact.
For sure, I agree with you. I think this is exactly what eBay needs. And I'm not saying it's the perfect marketing campaign, because I don't think it is perfect in any way, but it's headed in the right direction. You know, they're bringing attention to themselves, which is a start, and what they do from here is what matters, in my opinion.
No, I think so too. I think there needs to be more to it. And if you really want to slice into Amazon, you got to get a pretty good knife.
That's not a knife.
References that
80s,
nobody
90s.
will get anymore.
Those guys are so old. Well, next up, we deliver some inspiration for eBay and all the other slumping brands out there as we share 4 examples of brands that have overcome adversity and shifted consumer perceptions to regain their former brand glory.
You just heard the iconic theme from Rocky by Bill Conti. It's a strong musical choice anytime you're getting ready to throw your hat in the ring and stage a comeback, whether you're a boxer or a brand. So it's the perfect music to set the stage here as we discuss some of our favorite brand comebacks of all time. Every episode, I gotta say, of all time.
People are going to get tired of us saying that. They're going to be like, come on, everything can't be of all time. And we'll be like, you know, it can be.
And then somebody will be like, you forgot about the Boulder comeback of 2 BC.
That was the best Boulder comeback of all time. That's good. I like that. Yeah, maybe we do have to use it every time.
If we're gonna say of all time, we gotta go farther back, I think. I don't know about you, but both of my brand comebacks have taken place this century. So I'm not going back very far.
This century?
You know, I don't have any
I
brand
gotcha.
comebacks from like the 1200s.
Well, that's good.
I mean,
I
remember when
guess.
Al's blacksmith shop had that comeback in 1452?
He found a new kind of steel.
Yeah, changed everything. Forged
Changed
from
shit.
the steel of gods. That Steel of Gods brand campaign never went very far.
No. Well, that was his competitor.
Fred's blacksmith shop.
Fred, you need to do something about your steel. It's not as hard as Al's.
Al's cutting into your business with his 2-day shipping.
It's two-day shipping. More realistically, it was 2-year shipping. What is he, crazy?
It's a good flashback.
So, what's one of your 2 great comebacks that you've got on your list?
Yeah. We each came up with examples of what we thought were 2 pretty good or great brand comebacks of all time. So we each have 2 to share here. My first one is a little drink called Pabst Blue Ribbon. Pabst Blue Ribbon does go back 173 years. Established in 1844. But the peak of Pabst was 1977, when they were producing 18 million barrels a year. They were like
Wow.
third in beer sales around 1980. So they were one of the top dogs for a while. And then things went downhill. By the time we get to 2001, they're selling less than 1 million barrels a year. So a big difference,
Wow.
you know, a big fall off. But 2001, they got a new CEO who was the former CFO of Benetton. And he went about shaking up the marketing a little bit. And one of the things he did was he hired this word of mouth marketing agency called Fizz. And their first move was they were going to find out who's still drinking PBR and why are they drinking it. And that's when they discovered what are referred to as early hipsters. So they find all these people who were just drinking it because it was cheap and they liked the fact that it didn't have ads, you know, it wasn't like a Bud thing. Based on its past reputation, it became this cool drink for this very specific demographic. So they took the brand and they just rolled with that. So they sponsored events in cities like art gallery openings, skating parties, bike messenger races, things like that. And they just promoted it as this hipster drink. And, you know, that's the reputation that it's developed now, and it's fueled its comeback. You know, I said in 2001, they were like under 1 million barrels. In 2013, they were at 6 million barrels sold. And then the Pabst Brewing Company, which owns PBR and some other cheap beer brands, sold for $700 million in 2014.
Wow.
Took what was once a popular mainstream beer and just said, all right, well, let's own this specific place. And by doing it, they brought Pabst back and gave it a positive perception for a cheap beer. There's a portion of people who love it. One of them being me in the early 2000s. I drank a lot of Pabst Blue Ribbon in college. And one of the reasons why was it was cool because not a lot of people were drinking Pabst at the time.
So you liked it because it was different, and then nobody was drinking it.
Yeah. It had this reputation to it that made it cooler than most of the other cheap beers around at the time.
What really helped their comeback was that people started referring to it as PBR.
Tough
I don't
word.
even know if I'm saying
Yeah.
it right most of the time, which is hard. When the brand name itself is difficult to say, people almost shy away from saying it, in turn hurting the brand because nobody talks about it.
Yeah, it's true.
It's a weird thing.
And it's a weird name, the whole thing, Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Yeah, PBR. So the first on my list, Shad, is less mainstream. Kind of like yours, I guess. PBR is not one that I would have imagined you using, but I thought that Polaroid had a great comeback. A little bit about them. They were an American company, founded in 1937, which it's hard to believe that it was that old of a company. At its peak, had a revenue of $3 billion, and that was in 1991. So it was a very successful company. And I think that was the one interesting thing about Polaroid is people just in this digital age, people still crave tangible memories. And Polaroid has been capitalizing on that. Of course, they had to create something new and stylish, so they created a new casing for their Polaroid camera, which is basically instant photos. And the technology is all very much the same in that, you take a picture, it prints off these little photographs, and they slowly develop once it comes out of the...
You gotta shake them though, right?
Supposedly, you don't
I
really
know.
have to shake them. But yeah, shake it like a Polaroid
That's what everybody always
picture.
does, right?
Yeah. It's been a great comeback. They've introduced these new, smaller, colorful versions of their Polaroid camera. They even changed the format a little bit where they're not these square Polaroid pictures, but they're smaller rectangular version. So, great comeback, especially with the youth of today.
Yeah, and I think it does serve a purpose. It's so easy to take pictures now that we take way more pictures than we did previously when we were relying on film. But you also, most of the time, just nothing comes of them. You may look at them on your phone on occasion, but as they fall back in time, most of them, it's not like looking at a photo album. You're probably not going to pull out your old phone and look at old photos or an old drive. So they just get lost to time. It's nice to have an actual printed version. I wouldn't mind getting one of those little Polaroids.
Yeah, my daughter got one for her birthday. It's interesting because there's something about the permanence that happens when you take a picture and it's not perfect, that you haven't cropped it perfectly, that you don't have the perfect lighting. You make that a memory. There's something about that. To me, I've found this newfound appreciation. So
yeah, it's not as manipulated. And, there's a lot of these physical mediums. You've seen another good example of a brand comeback is vinyl. They may not be dominating the market like they once were, but there's a place for them.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's all about people having an affinity for the tangible. Like digital music today, you don't pick up a CD, you don't pick up an album, you don't pick up something and physically hold it in your hands, listen to it, look at the album art, flip through the lyrics like you used to. And I think there's still a market for that is highly underrated in many cases.
Yeah, it's the classic technology trade-off. We get something easier and more convenient, but you give away a little, I still miss looking at somebody's shelf full of CDs or DVDs and, just seeing what they have. It's an interesting experience. So that's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good one. And it's got to be crazy. You work at a company at Polaroid too. All of a sudden, one day you walk in and your business is almost totally obsolete by technology.
Yeah. The one thing about Polaroid is that they have a lot of patents when it comes to camera technology.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
My next one is a brand that you'll probably agree with me, our perception of has changed mightily in our lifetime. This is a brand that dates back to the 30s and has a very different reputation now than it did 30 years ago. Old Spice. If you remember back to being a kid or a teenager, do you remember what your thoughts were about Old Spice if you were aware of Old Spice?
When I was a kid, it was like your dad's smell,
Yep.
his scent.
Yeah.
Not even soap or deodorant or cologne or anything like that. It was just, oh, that's old man scent kind
Exactly.
of thing, or your dad. Yeah.
Exactly. I remember, they had glass white bottle with like a gray top, and this stuff just came out that smelled like your dad, right? And that was the brand's recognition for a long time, which worked fine for it until it didn't. We get to somewhere around the 2000s, and you have Axe, who came along and started stealing business from Old Spice, and it was just one of those brands that was fading into the past. It was, people thought of it the way we thought of it. It was the smell of your dad. And then 2008 is when the brand comeback really began. When they started rebranding, they updated to add deodorants, body washes, body sprays, and it was more what happened with the marketing from there. They tackled the stigma as a brand that, smells like your grandfather or your dad head on, took it in their marketing, and just did something really funny with it that worked and went viral. Chief among that was the 2010 Smell Like a Man campaign. And there was the commercial, The Man Your Man Could Smell Like, which currently has like 55 million YouTube views. It's just one of the most viral and memorable commercials of all time, but started Old Spice down this path of this weird, funny marketing, takes on the manliness and the manly scent and put a different spin on it, and it worked. That year, I think the Old Spice body wash bumped by 27% after they started airing those commercials. And they just kept grabbing a bigger share of the market, and made a big comeback. And I think the way people think about Old Spice, the brand today, it's erased a lot of that past. For younger people, they probably only know it as the brand with the funny marketing, in the red products with predominantly red coloration. They've erased that past and created just a new future for the brand. So it's, to me, is the definition of a brand comeback.
Yeah, they've got some great marketing pieces they've done over the years. And now, was Terry Crews, was that before or after the Man Your Man Could Smell Like?
Terry Crews, I think, came after. Yeah.
Those were all really funny and good. And it's amazing how changing your marketing and first having fun with it and then flooding it in the market space to the point where people don't remember your brand before that point, because not every brand can do that, right?
Yeah.
And to do it effectively. So yeah, that's a great example. And some of my favorite marketing has come from that in the last 10 years or so, because that's about when it started, right?
Yeah.
So I did bounce between a couple different ones, and I ended up coming back to Marvel for my second pick. Again, another American brand. Everybody knows Marvel is the maker of comic books, originally known as Marvel Worldwide Incorporated or Marvel Publishing or Marvel Comics Group. And it went broke in the mid-90s because the comic book market crashed. Like, in terms of, we were talking about eBay, it just was the epitome of a stagnant market. People just weren't comic book people back then. What happened was Marvel then refocused their efforts into live action movies that caused this very mainstream and well-known brand makeover. Obviously, because we all know about them today. You can't go anywhere without talking to someone who doesn't have some fandom for at least one superhero. Probably one of the best comebacks ever if you think about it, because going from a bankrupt company into one that many of the Marvel properties are billion-dollar franchises now. Walt Disney Company acquired Marvel in 2009 for an obscene amount of money, and it was a comic book company. Again, one of the greatest brand comebacks, at least in my lifetime.
Yeah, I think undoubtedly when you see what Marvel, the brand, has become versus Marvel makes comic books. They're a comic book maker. They're small. Now the Marvel brand, is probably known by everybody, not even just the comic book audience. It's everywhere, and these movies are making so much money. What I wonder is how the movies have impacted the comic book business. If they're selling them more comic books because of the movies.
It has to impact it. It has to.
Yeah.
From a comic book company into really it's pop culture. Like you said, there's nobody that doesn't know what Marvel is at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's huge. It's a huge brand. One of the biggest names in entertainment across the board. I'd call that a pretty grand comeback. What about, are there any others? So those are kind of our two we picked. Were there any others you thought about talking about?
Well, obviously Apple, which I would probably put as the number one brand comeback of all time by far.
Yeah, I think you even said, prior to the show, almost too obvious to do, but yeah, it's obviously one of the greatest examples of a brand not only coming back, but man, storming to the top, right?
Yeah. Any other ones on your list that seem to stand out?
Well, that was one. The other one I would say is Lego. I thought Lego had a pretty interesting story because, you know, Lego's been around for a long time, and they've been a staple toy, but like all staples like that, eventually they become boring. Different version comes around. Kids play with different toys. It's still there, but you know, you're watching sales just decrease until you're hitting a alert level. And I think for Lego that happened around the year 2000. Their big move that reinvigorated the brand was licensing deals. So that's where you got, you know, your Star Wars Lego, your Batman Legos, all these sets that are so popular now, brought the freshness back to the brand, led to the Lego movie, you know, and this brand expansion into entertainment, video games that's been huge. Probably took them up a notch. I would imagine their profits are as good as they've ever been today.
That's a great story. The licensing alone can bring a company back. And if you've got a good product, which they do, people are going to license the crap out of it.
Just like it was worth it when you bought all those dirty Legos on eBay. Full circle?
Let me tell you something. Legos aren't cheap. If you ever even try to buy used Legos, you would be surprised at how much you'll pay for them.
Really?
You almost pay the same amount for a used Lego that you would for a new Lego. It's insane. Did you know Legos
Were they
are
used
expensive?
by a king?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of good
Legos.
Brand comeback stories out there, and I think we picked some pretty good and unique ones to talk about today.
And officially now we have a list of 3 each, so we could call them lists.
Yes, we did it. And on that note, let's get our final nugget of human wisdom.
So for today's human wisdom, I'm going to focus on what's at the core of great brand comebacks. The persistence. The persistence of building something that will last, and the heart of every great story. Don't ever give up. Even when things are down, when the situation seems most dire, push forward, work hard, build something that will last. And if it's not yours, if it's not your company, strive to be a part of something bigger. That's what life is all about. Steve Jobs once said, "I hate it when people call themselves entrepreneurs, when what they're really trying to do is launch a startup and then sell or go public, so they can cash in and move on. They're unwilling to do the work it takes to build a real company, which is the hardest work in business. That's how you really make a contribution and add to the legacy of those who went before. You build a company that will still stand for something a generation or two from now. That's what Walt Disney did, and Hewlett-Packard, and the people who built Intel. They created a company to last, not to just make money. That's what I want Apple to be."
That's a good one. Can't go wrong with Jobs. A lot of good quotes from him.
You know, very relatable to today's episode. Comebacks, you know, even when you're down and out, never give up. There's always a way, you know?
Yeah. In particular, if you have that strong base, you know, that strong brand and history and mission, where you go back and you look and say, what were we trying to do? A lot of times it's just finding another different way to do that. Good nugget there today, my friend.
So that's it for today's episode, everyone. You can find current and past episodes of the podcast on speakinghuman.com. While you're there, sign up for the weekly emails and let Speaking Human come to you.
Email us your thoughts on today's show or let us know your suggestions for future show topics. Feedback@speakinghuman.com. That's feedback@speakinghuman.com. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Speaking Human. Catch you then, humans.
Speaking human.